I noticed the mistake before I noticed the envelope. That was the kind of habit you develop after a lifetime of checking what others overlook. Not panic, not suspicion, just pattern recognition. The envelope itself was ordinary enough, white, stiff, the kind of paper that doesn't bend easily. It lay on the small table near my door where I drop my mail every afternoon. No handwriting, my name typed cleanly, without errors. Correct address, correct postal code, but it was sitting on top of the stack. I don't put official mail on top. Bills go underneath. Circulars go in the recycling immediately. Anything that looks administrative waits until my hands are clean and my attention is steady. That envelope had skipped the system. I closed the door behind me and stood there for a moment, listening to the apartment settle. The familiar sounds were all present. The soft tick of the wall clock, the refrigerator cycling on, traffic muffled through 3 layers of brick and glass. Nothing dramatic, nothing wrong. Still, I didn't open the envelope right away. I took off my coat, hung it where it belonged, and washed my hands at the kitchen sink. Warm water, soap, 30 seconds. Old habits from a career spent around documents that could ruin lives if handled carelessly. Only then did I pick it up. The return address belonged to a benefits administration office I recognized instantly. I'd advised clients about their letters for years. They don't write casually. They don't speculate. When they contact you, something has already changed. I opened it with a letter opener I've owned since the 90s and unfolded the page carefully, smoothing the crease before reading. The first sentence was enough. Notice of beneficiary update confirmation. I read it once, then again, slower. According to the letter, my pension payout instructions had been amended 10 days earlier. A new primary beneficiary had been recorded. All future disbursements, including survivor adjustments and insurance-linked payments, would be directed accordingly. I was thanked for promptly updating my information. My hands didn't shake. That surprises people when they hear it later, but shock doesn't always announce itself physically. Sometimes it arrives as stillness, like your body deciding movement would be inefficient. The beneficiary listed wasn't my sister. It wasn't a charity. It wasn't even a person. It was a trust I had never created. I lowered myself into the chair by the window because standing had stopped being useful. The apartment looked exactly the same as it had that morning. The same light across the floor. The same plant my wife insisted would survive if I stopped overthinking it. The same framed photo of us on the shelf. Evelyn laughing at something I can no longer remember clearly, but still remember fondly. Nothing had been taken, and yet, something fundamental had moved. I reached for the folder in my desk labeled retirement and opened it with practiced ease. Statements, confirmations, old correspondence, everything was there. Too neat. The papers were aligned differently than I'd left them. A document that usually sat third from the top was now on top. A corner was folded where I never fold corners. Someone had looked for a specific page and hadn't bothered to disguise it well. I checked the lock on the front door. No damage, which meant whoever had been inside didn't need to force their way in. My spare key. I crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and looked at the small ceramic hook where it normally hung. Empty. I stood there longer than necessary, not because I was confused, but because I was already reconstructing timelines. Who had access? Who had motive? Who benefited? My phone vibrated on the table. A message preview lit the screen. Marissa. Stopped by earlier to drop off some soup. You weren't home. Hope that's okay. Yellow heart. I didn't open the message. I didn't reply. I sat back down, placed the letter on the table in front of me, and did what I had done for 40 years whenever something didn't add up. I began keeping records. I didn't call Marissa back. Not yet. That's another thing people misunderstand about calm. Calm isn't softness. Calm is sequencing. You don't waste a move before you know the board. I made coffee first. Black, no sugar, because routine steadies the mind. Then I sat at my desk and wrote a simple timeline on a legal pad. Letter received. Today, 4:17 p.m. Beneficiary update recorded. 10 days ago, per notice. Marissa, stopped by earlier, today, unknown time. Spare key missing. Confirmed today, 4:24 p.m. Next to it, I wrote 3 names. Marissa, Daniel, Evelyn. Evelyn was my late wife. The only one of the 3 who wasn't capable of surprising me anymore. I'm 69. I retired 2 years ago. For most of my adult life, I worked as a compliance investigator for a manufacturing company, internal audits, vendor fraud, payroll irregularities, safety reports that had been adjusted to look prettier for management. I didn't chase criminals with a badge. I chased patterns with paper. When you do that work long enough, you develop a quiet immunity to excuses. Everyone has reasons. Few have proof. I met Evelyn when I was 24. She wasn't impressed by titles or talk. She was impressed by consistency. She used to say, "You don't promise much, but when you do, you mean it." We were married 41 years. She died last spring, quickly and without drama. One medical appointment that turned into a diagnosis. 1 month that turned into hospice. One last night where she insisted on holding my hand like it was a formal agreement between us. After she was gone, the world didn't break loudly. It just became less cooperative. Doors felt heavier. Clocks felt sharper. Even the apartment seemed to listen differently. I didn't collapse. I didn't spiral. I did what I've always done. I maintained structure. Every morning. Coffee, 2 pieces of toast. Check the news without letting it check me. Every afternoon. Walk to the corner market. Buy what I need. Come home, sort mail the same way. And every Sunday, I met my daughter. Marissa is 36, smart, quick with words, quick with tears. She works in marketing, which means she can sell certainty even when none exists. Evelyn loved her fiercely, sometimes too fiercely. When Marissa was a teenager, Evelyn covered for her mistakes. When Marissa became an adult, Evelyn covered for her again, just with nicer language. After Evelyn died, Marissa showed up constantly. At first it felt like love. She brought soup. She replaced light bulbs. She organized my medicine cabinet like I was 90. She insisted on helping with paperwork. "Dad, you're grieving," she'd say. "Let me handle the boring stuff." I told her no, politely, repeatedly. Then she started bringing my grandson. Daniel is 8. He's my soft spot and Marissa knows it. He'd sit on my living room rug with his little plastic dinosaurs while Marissa moved around my apartment like she already owned the air inside it. She'd straighten a stack of papers. She'd glance at my laptop screen. She'd pick up an envelope and read the return address before handing it to me like she was doing me a favor. "Just making sure it's not something urgent," she'd say. Evelyn used to correct her gently. "Don't do that, sweetheart. Your father likes things a certain way." But Evelyn wasn't here anymore. And with her gone, Marissa's help became more confident. The first real boundary was my phone. My vision isn't what it used to be. One afternoon, Marissa leaned over my shoulder while I squinted at a small update message. "Give it here," she said, already tapping. "You'll click the wrong thing." She changed a setting. Then she changed another. "What did you do?" I asked. "Just security," she said quickly. "You need 2-factor authentication. Everyone does. It's safer." It sounded reasonable. It always sounds reasonable right before it becomes a problem. Next boundary. My passwords. A week later, I couldn't get into my email. The "forgot password" process sent a code, not to my phone, but to Marissa's number. I noticed because the screen told me. Marissa smiled without embarrassment. "Oh, I must have set it up like that when I was helping." No big deal. No big deal. That phrase is a tool. It makes you feel petty for caring. It trains you to accept changes without consent. I corrected it immediately. In front of her. Calmly. She watched me do it with a look that wasn't anger exactly. More like irritation at a door that didn't open. A month after Evelyn's funeral, Marissa asked about my pension. Not casually. Not, "How are you doing?" Direct. "Dad, do you have everything updated?" she asked. "Like, beneficiaries and stuff?" I do, I said. It hasn't changed. It should, she insisted. Mom's gone. If something happens to you, it'll be a mess. You always told me planning matters. That was true. I did say that. I also told her consent matters, but she never liked that part. My beneficiary is already set, I said. And it's not a mess. She leaned back like I was being stubborn for sport. Okay, she said, but her eyes did that thing. Calculating, measuring what else might work. That night, I opened the small safe I keep in my closet. I hadn't touched it in weeks. Inside were two things. Evelyn's jewelry box and a folder with the most important documents: passport, birth certificate, pension paperwork. The folder was there, but the zipper on the inner sleeve was slightly open. I knew it because I always close it all the way. I didn't confront Marissa. I didn't accuse. Accusations make people hide better. Instead, I started noting details. Dates, behaviors, small shifts. By the time the official letter arrived today, I wasn't shocked that someone had tried to move something. I was shocked by how far they'd gotten. Because changing a pension beneficiary isn't like changing a mailing address. It takes credentials, identity proof, forms, sometimes notaries, sometimes online access, sometimes a phone call with security questions that don't belong to a stranger. Someone hadn't just touched my life. Someone had been inside my systems. I looked at my timeline again. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the benefits portal. My login didn't work. I tried again. Slowly. Correctly. Still wrong. I clicked, forgot password. The system offered to send a reset code. Not to my email. Not to my phone. To an unfamiliar address. Half masked, but enough visible to tell me it wasn't mine. That's when I finally opened Marissa's message. Stopped by earlier to drop off some soup. You weren't home. Hope that's okay. It wasn't the soup that mattered. It was the certainty. She wasn't asking permission. She was announcing access. I set the phone down and stared at the empty key hook again. Then I did the first thing I should have done weeks ago. I called someone who doesn't love me. Someone who doesn't need to believe my daughter is good. A colleague from my old job, retired like me, but still sharp, picked up on the second ring. Tom, I said, I need you to do something for me. He didn't ask why. He just said, tell me what you have. And for the first time since Evelyn died, I felt the shape of control returning, quietly, but unmistakably. Because love makes you hesitate. Records don't. Tom didn't interrupt while I explained. That's how I knew he was taking this seriously. I told him only what mattered. The beneficiary change notice, the missing spare key, the altered login recovery, and Marissa's message announcing she'd been inside my apartment without asking. I didn't speculate. I didn't accuse. I listed facts in the order they occurred. When I finished, there was a short pause. Okay, he said finally. First rule. Assume nothing is accidental. Second rule. Assume she didn't do this alone. That aligned with what I already knew. Marissa is impulsive, but she isn't procedural. She doesn't fill out forms correctly the first time. She doesn't read fine print. Someone had helped her, or she'd learned faster than she ever had before. Tom asked one question that mattered. Who else had access to your place or your information in the last 6 months? I looked around my apartment as if the walls might answer. No one officially, I said. But she's been involved. More than she needed to be. Then that's your entry point, he said. Access always comes dressed as concern. He told me not to change anything yet. Not passwords. Not locks. Not routines. Let them think the ground is stable, he said. People get sloppy when they think they've already won. After we hung up, I sat very still and replayed the last few months, not emotionally, but structurally. The access hadn't happened all at once. It had arrived in increments. First, visibility. Marissa started asking where things were. Documents, accounts, contacts, doctors. She framed every question as preparation, planning, help. Second, presence. She increased how often she stopped by, especially when she knew I'd be out. Market days, afternoon walks. She learned my rhythms the way people do when they're mapping an environment. Third, assistance. She offered to handle small tasks, setting reminders, updating apps, printing forms. Every task reduced friction for her and increased dependence for me. Fourth, normalization. She stopped asking permission and started informing me after the fact. I already did it. I took care of that. Don't worry about it. By the time something felt wrong, the behavior was already framed as routine. I opened my calendar and scrolled back. There it was. 3 months ago, Marissa had scheduled a benefits review call on my behalf. She said it would save me time. She insisted on sitting in, just to listen. I remembered that call now with new clarity. The representative had asked standard verification questions. My address, my date of birth, my former employer. Marissa answered 2 of them before I did. I corrected her once. She laughed it off. "Oh, sorry," she said. "I know all this stuff anyway." The representative didn't push back. He had no reason to. Family involvement is common, especially after a spouse's death. That call ended with nothing changed, or so I'd thought. But the system remembered who spoke. I pulled my phone records. There it was again. A call made from Marissa's number to the benefits provider 10 days ago. Duration: 14 minutes. I was at the dentist that afternoon. I remembered because I'd complained to Marissa about the bill. She'd said, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll see what I can do." That was the day the beneficiary update was recorded. I didn't need her confession. I needed confirmation. I logged into my apartment building's resident portal and checked the access logs. The front door fob system tracks entries by unit. There were 2 entries on days I'd been out, both during weekday afternoons. Both registered under my unit, which meant someone had used a key or been let in by management. I emailed the building manager, not accusing, just asking for clarification about recent access tied to my apartment. I worded it neutrally, professionally, the way I used to write internal audit requests. I didn't mention Marissa. I waited. Then I checked my email recovery settings again. The masked address still didn't belong to me. I took a screenshot, timestamp included. Then another. Documentation doesn't need drama. It needs sequence. That evening, Marissa called. Her tone was light, friendly, almost careless. "Hey, Dad, you didn't text back earlier. Everything okay?" "Yes," I said. "Just a quiet day." "Oh good," she said quickly. "Listen, I might stop by tomorrow. Daniel wants to show you his new school project." There it was again. Not may I. Might stop by. She was testing whether the announcement would be challenged. "That's fine," I said. "I'll be home in the afternoon." She relaxed audibly. People think calm agreement is surrender. It isn't. After the call, I went to my bedroom and checked the small drawer in my nightstand. The folder with Evelyn's medical directive and my beneficiary paperwork was still there. But it was thinner than it should have been. 1 page was missing. The authorization form, blank but signed years ago so it could be used in emergencies. Something Evelyn had insisted on, just in case. A page that should never have left that drawer. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt the weight of it settle. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't confusion. This was preparation. Marissa hadn't broken in. She'd been invited. By grief, by trust, by my own assumption that family doesn't need to be audited. And now she believed the access she'd been given was permanent. That belief would be her mistake. I opened my notebook and wrote 1 line under today's date. Access established. Authorization abused. Documentation in progress. Then I closed it. Tomorrow, I would let her come. Not to confront her, but to observe her closely, and let her assume she was still ahead. Marissa arrived the next afternoon exactly at 2:17. Not early, not late, on time in the way people are when they want to appear respectful, but not subordinate. She didn't knock. She used the key. I was in the kitchen when I heard the lock turn. I didn't react immediately. I counted to 3 in my head before stepping into the hallway. "Oh," she said, smiling too quickly. "I thought you were in the living room." "I was," I replied calmly. Then I moved. Daniel followed her in, holding a cardboard display board covered in bright markers and glued photos. A school project. Safe. Disarming. Marissa always layered innocence over intrusion. Mr. Hale? A woman asked. Yes, this is Patricia Nolan. I'm a licensed social worker with the county. I'd like to speak with you regarding a routine wellness follow-up. Routine. That word again. I wasn't aware of any request, I said evenly. There was a referral, she replied. From a family member. Of course there was. I see, I said. And what exactly does this follow-up involve? Just a short conversation, she said. Possibly an in-home visit, if needed. It's standard when concerns are raised about cognitive strain after a loss. After a loss, they always frame it that way. Soft, reasonable, protective. Who raised the concern? I asked. There was a pause. Professional, trained. I can't disclose that. I understand, I said. Then I decline. Her tone shifted slightly. Mr. Hale, refusing cooperation can sometimes escalate the process. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Ms. Nolan, I said calmly, I'm declining an informal visit. Not refusing lawful process. There's a difference. Another pause. Well, she said, perhaps we could schedule a phone assessment. Send everything in writing, I replied, including the basis for the referral and the specific concerns cited. Silence stretched. That may take some time, she said. That's fine, I replied. I'm not going anywhere. We ended the call politely. I sat down and wrote in my notebook. External pressure initiated. Authority borrowed, not earned. Referral equals family. Likely Marissa. Then I checked my email. There it was. A calendar invite I hadn't accepted. Cognitive wellness check. Tentative. She'd already assumed compliance. I forwarded it to Tom. His response came fast. She's moving fast. Too fast. I know, I typed back. She wants paper trails before questions catch up. Minutes later, my bank app sent a notification. Unrecognized login attempt blocked. Different IP. Same region as Marissa's office. That made 3 systems in a week. Patterns don't lie. I drove to the bank that afternoon. Not to complain. To observe. I waited in line quietly, watched the staff. When it was my turn, I asked to speak to a manager, not urgently, not angrily. Just a security review, I said. The manager, a man named Paul, pulled up my account. Have you authorized anyone else on your profile recently? He asked. No, I replied. He hesitated. Because there was an inquiry last week, he said. From someone identifying as your daughter. She didn't have access, but she asked about procedures. Did she provide documentation? I asked. No, he said. We declined, of course. Of course. But she'd planted a seed. Can I see a note of that interaction? I asked. He nodded and printed it. Name, date, time, employee initials. I folded the paper carefully. Thank you, I said. You may hear from my attorney if this escalates. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Understood. On the way home, I didn't feel angry. I felt focused. That evening, Tom came over. We spread everything out on the table. Call logs, screenshots, bank notes, the missing phone. She's building a narrative, he said. Concerned daughter, aging father, grief, confusion, and positioning herself as solution, I replied. He nodded. She'll push for an evaluation next. Friendly doctor, friendly report. Too obvious, I said. Which means she'll make it seem accidental. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Tom said, there's something else. He slid a folder toward me. Public records. Quiet ones. I opened it. Marissa's name appeared. Once, twice, linked to a consulting firm I didn't recognize. What is this? I asked. Asset Transition Advisory, Tom said. They specialize in elder financial restructuring. That was a nice way of saying extraction. My jaw tightened. She's done this before, I said. Not illegally, he replied. Not provably. That's how these firms operate. I closed the folder slowly. She thinks I'm just another case, I said. Tom met my eyes. Then we stop being reactive, he said, and start setting traps. I nodded, because the truth was clear now. This wasn't panic, this was practice, and Marissa wasn't acting alone. She was following a script, which meant someone else knew the ending. And soon, they were going to learn. I don't forget my lines. The letter arrived 3 days later. Official letterhead, county seal, neutral language, recommendation for cognitive screening, not an order, not yet, just a suggestion, carefully worded, politely framed, legally weightless but psychologically heavy. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. They cited recent bereavement, reported confusion, and financial complexity. No accusations, no conclusions, just concern. And concern, when written down, becomes leverage. Tom and I met that evening. She didn't push, he said. That's intentional. She wants me to volunteer, I replied. If I agree, she controls the frame. Tom nodded. And if you refuse, she escalates. Emergency petition. Claims resistance equals impairment. We both knew the playbook. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in my folder. Then we don't refuse, I said. We redirect. 2 days later, I called Patricia Nolan back. I received your recommendation, I said calmly. I'm open to an evaluation. Her relief was audible. That's very cooperative of you, Mr. Hale, she said. On one condition, I added. I choose the physician. A pause. That's not typical. It's legal, I replied. And reasonable. She hesitated, then said, I'll need to note that. Please do. I scheduled the appointment myself. Dr. Samuel Reeve, board-certified neurologist. No prior connection to Marissa. No consulting ties. The morning of the evaluation, I dressed carefully. Not sharp. Not sloppy. Neutral. People underestimate how much clothing influences perception. Dr. Reeve was polite, methodical. He didn't rush, didn't condescend. Tell me why you're here, he said. Because people around me are worried, I replied. I want clarity. He nodded. We talked for over an hour. Memory tests, pattern recognition, decision-making scenarios. He asked about my wife. I answered honestly. She kept our calendar, I said. I miss that. He smiled faintly. Many couples divide tasks. He asked about finances. I manage them daily, I said. With records. At the end, he leaned back. Mr. Hale, he said, you're grieving. But you are not impaired. I felt something loosen in my chest. I'll document that, he continued. Clearly, I thanked him. Outside, I sat in my car for a long moment before driving. Because I knew, this wouldn't stop her. That afternoon, Marissa called. Her voice was warm. Too warm. Dad, I heard you had an appointment. I said nothing. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself, she continued. It means a lot. You're monitoring my calendar now? I asked. A pause. I just worry, she said. You haven't been yourself. I passed, I replied. Silence. Past what? She asked carefully. The evaluation, I said. Clean. Another pause. Longer this time. That's good, she said, but her tone betrayed her. She'd expected ambiguity. She'd hoped for doubt. Instead, she got documentation. That night, Tom called. Something changed, he said. I can feel it, I replied. She's filing something else, he said. Not incapacity. Authority. I closed my eyes. Power of attorney? Exactly. The next morning, I found the draft in my email. Not sent to me. Accidentally copied. A document titled, Durable Power of Attorney, Emergency Draft. Prepared by a firm I didn't recognize. I read it slowly. Effective immediately. Trigger. Medical uncertainty. Agent. Marissa Hale. She jumped ahead. She thought I wouldn't notice. I forwarded it to Tom with one sentence. She thinks the door is unlocked. His reply came fast. Good. Let her step inside. Because now, she wasn't circling anymore. She was committing. And when people commit too early, they leave fingerprints everywhere. The invitation arrived by text. Family dinner. Just us. We need to talk. No emojis. No warmth. That alone told me everything. Marissa didn't call it an intervention. She didn't have to. The word was implied. I showed the message to Tom. She wants witnesses, he said. And emotional leverage. I'll go, I replied. He raised an eyebrow. Voluntarily? Yes, I said, but on my terms. That evening, I arrived 5 minutes late on purpose. Timing matters. Early looks eager. Late looks defensive. 5 minutes late looks unbothered. Marissa had set the table carefully. Too carefully. Candles, soft music, comfort food, performance. Her husband, Daniel, stood when I entered. His smile was polite, rehearsed. My sister-in-law, Karen, was already seated. My nephew, Ethan, hovered near the kitchen doorway, unsure why he was there. They were props. Marissa hugged me longer than necessary. You look tired, she whispered. I'm fine, I said evenly. Dinner began with small talk. Weather, work, nothing real. Then Marissa placed her fork down gently. Dad, she said, we're worried. There it was. Karen nodded on cue. Daniel leaned forward, hands clasped. About what? I asked. You've been making unusual choices, Marissa said carefully. Like what? Refusing help, hiring lawyers, going to doctors alone. I smiled faintly. Those are adult choices. Her jaw tightened. This isn't about control, she said. It's about safety. Safety. The most flexible word in family warfare. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Daniel cleared his throat. No one is questioning your intelligence, he said. We just think maybe you're overwhelmed. I am, I said. By interference. Silence fell. Karen jumped in. You lost your wife, she said gently. Grief can do strange things. I nodded. Yes, it can also reveal strange behavior in others. Marissa exhaled slowly, as if bracing herself. We just want temporary authority, she said. Until things settle. There it is, I replied. Her eyes widened. Dad, you didn't invite me here to talk, I continued calmly. You invited me to sign. Daniel looked down. Karen froze. Marissa recovered quickly. If that's how you want to see it. It is, I said. You drafted the document already. Her breath caught. How do you? You copied me, I said. By mistake. The room shifted. Ethan stared at his plate. Karen's face flushed. Marissa? Marissa straightened. It was just a precaution. Without my consent, I said. Before the evaluation. Before any findings. Daniel finally spoke. Marissa, maybe we rushed. She shot him a look sharp enough to cut. I'm protecting my father, she said. No, I replied quietly. You're positioning yourself. Her smile faltered. I passed the evaluation, I said. Documented. Certified. Karen blinked. You did? Yes, I said. Clean. That wasn't part of Marissa's script. You didn't tell us that, Karen said, turning to her. Marissa forced a laugh. Because it doesn't change everything. It changes jurisdiction, I replied. Silence again. Thicker this time. Daniel shifted. Maybe we should slow down, he said. Marissa stood abruptly. This is exactly what I mean, she snapped. You're defensive. Paranoid. I remained seated. Paranoid people hide paperwork, I said. I keep records. Her face drained of color. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Because she knew. Records were dangerous. I stood. Thank you for dinner, I said calmly. This conversation is over. Marissa followed me to the door. You're making a mistake, she hissed. People will believe me. I turned to her. Then choose your next step carefully, I said. Because from this point on, everything you do will be documented. She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Her silence told me enough. She'd crossed from concern to coercion. And coercion leaves a trail. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. Tom, that meeting? He said. She overplayed her hand, I replied. A pause. Good, he said. Because now she's no longer worried daughter. What is she now? I asked. A petitioner with motive. I parked, sat in the dark for a moment, and thought of my wife. She used to say, pay attention to what people rush. Because rushed kindness usually hides fear. And fear, once exposed, becomes evidence. The petition was filed 3 days later. Not quietly, not cautiously, aggressively. Tom called me at 8:12 a.m. She didn't wait, he said. Emergency petition for temporary guardianship. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? Cognitive decline, financial vulnerability, risk of exploitation. I let out a slow breath. She's escalated. Yes, Tom said, which means she thinks speed will beat accuracy. That's a mistake, I replied. Emergency petitions are blunt instruments. They rely on urgency, not proof. Marissa wanted a judge before I could respond. What she didn't realize was that emergency filings leave fingerprints. By noon, we had a copy. I read it slowly. She claimed I'd forgotten appointments, that I'd withdrawn unusual sums of money, that I'd become secretive. No dates, no witnesses, no medical documentation, just narrative. She's building a story, I said, and hoping the court accepts it as fact, Tom replied. What's our move? We don't counter, he said. We let her talk. That surprised me. Emergency hearings happen fast, he explained. Judges interrupt. Petitioners ramble. I smiled faintly. Marissa rambles. Yes, Tom said, especially when she thinks she's right. The hearing was scheduled for the next morning. No jury, just a judge, a clerk, and a recorder. I slept well that night. Not because I wasn't worried, but because everything was documented. At the courthouse, Marissa arrived with Daniel and a young attorney who looked confident and underprepared. She didn't look at me. I sat beside Tom, calm, hands folded. When the judge entered, Marissa leaned forward immediately. Your Honor, we are here because my father is no longer capable of. The judge raised a hand. Let's proceed methodically, she said. Marissa nodded, visibly restraining herself. She spoke fast, too fast. She talked about grief, isolation, my resistance to family help. She presented bank statements, partial ones, highlighted numbers without context. Then came the line she thought would end it. He refuses to acknowledge his limitations. The judge turned to me. Mr. Harris, she said, do you acknowledge limitations? Yes, I replied. Everyone has them. A pause. Do you deny cognitive decline? I deny unsubstantiated claims, I said evenly. Tom stood. Your Honor, he said. We object to the characterization of secrecy. He handed the clerk a folder. Complete financial records, medical evaluations, independent assessments. The judge raised an eyebrow. Marissa's attorney stiffened. These were conducted after the petition. No, Tom said calmly. Before. The judge flipped through the documents. Dates mattered. Marissa shifted in her seat. Mr. Harris, the judge said, you were evaluated 2 weeks ago? Yes. And found competent? Yes. She turned to Marissa. Why wasn't this disclosed? Marissa opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her attorney whispered urgently. The judge waited. Then Marissa spoke. I didn't think it was relevant. The judge leaned back. Medical competence is the only relevant factor in an emergency guardianship petition. Silence. Tom wasn't finished. Additionally, he said, the petitioner requested emergency status without evidence of imminent harm. He paused. My client has been functioning independently, without incident. The judge closed the folder. I see no grounds for emergency intervention, she said. Marissa's face went pale. This petition is denied. Not dismissed. Denied. A denial stays on record. The judge looked directly at Marissa. I suggest caution with future filings. That was judicial language for warning. Outside the courtroom, Marissa finally looked at me. Her eyes weren't angry. They were calculating. This isn't over, she said quietly. I nodded. You're right, I replied. Now it's documented. She turned and walked away without another word. Tom exhaled. She exposed herself, he said. Emergency petitions are meant for crisis, not leverage. What happens now? I asked. Now, he said, she either backs off or doubles down. I looked down the courthouse steps. Families don't break all at once. They fracture along paper trails, and Marissa had just left hers in public record. Marissa didn't wait. 3 days after the denial, A letter arrived. Certified. Medical letterhead. I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it would be. Borrowed authority is the next move when legal force fails. Tom read it first. She's brought in a doctor, he said. Her doctor? I asked. No, he replied. A consulting physician. One evaluation. 30 minutes. I nodded. Opinion, not diagnosis. Exactly. The letter stated that based on observation, I exhibited early indicators of diminished executive function. No tests cited. No history referenced. Just language, carefully vague. She wants this on record, Tom said. So the next filing looks supported. And the doctor? I asked. Dr. Evan Klein. Semi-retired. Does a lot of capacity opinions. I let out a short breath. Professional witness. Yes. Tom leaned forward. This matters because judges respect white coats. Even bad ones. So what do? We don't attack the opinion, he said. We expose the process. The appointment was already scheduled. Marissa hadn't asked. She'd informed me. I went anyway. Compliance matters when records are being built. Dr. Klein's office smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. He shook my hand quickly. Didn't look at me when he did. He asked about dates, names, current events. I answered calmly. He interrupted. Repeated questions in different forms. Then came the real test. Do you trust your family? He asked. Yes, I said. Do you trust them with your finances? No, I replied. He looked up. Why not? Because trust and oversight are not the same thing. He frowned slightly. That sounds defensive. No, I said evenly. It's precise. He made a note. 30 minutes later, it was over. No cognitive testing. No functional assessment. Just impressions. Outside, Tom was waiting. How'd it go? He asked. He wanted agreement, I said. Not accuracy. Tom nodded. That tracks. 2 days later, the report arrived. Carefully worded. Ambiguous. Phrases like possible decline. Recommend monitoring. Family involvement suggested. No conclusion, but enough suggestion to misuse. She'll attach this to a new filing, Tom said. And this time we counter hard. He slid a folder across the table. What's that? 3 neurologists. 1 geriatric psychiatrist. Full battery testing. I raised an eyebrow. You anticipated this. Tom smiled thinly. She followed the pattern exactly. The evaluations took a week. MRI. Cognitive benchmarks. Functional independence scales. Real medicine. The results were boring. Normal for age. Above average executive function. No impairment. Tom compiled everything. Then he did something unexpected. He sent it to Dr. Klein. With a cover letter. Professional. Polite. Pointed. 3 days later, Dr. Klein amended his report. Softened language. Added disclaimers. Clarified. Non-diagnostic. He didn't retract, but he distanced. That's fear, Tom said. Not integrity. Marissa filed again anyway. This time non-emergency. Petition for limited guardianship. Supported by medical concern. Now we were in open conflict. At the hearing, her attorney leaned heavily on Dr. Klein's initial wording. Tom waited, then stood. Your Honor, he said, we move to admit the full medical record. The judge read, slowly, then looked up. Why were these evaluations not sought initially? Marissa's attorney hesitated. Marissa spoke instead. They were excessive. The judge's expression hardened. Safeguards are not excess. She turned to Tom. As Dr. Klein present? Yes, Tom said, and subpoenaed. Dr. Klein took the stand. He looked uncomfortable. Tom didn't raise his voice. He asked about methodology, time spent, tests used. Then he presented the amended report. Doctor, Tom asked, why did you revise your opinion? Dr. Klein swallowed. Additional information became available. Information that contradicted your initial implication? Yes. Silence. The judge closed her notebook. I find this petition unsupported, she said. Another denial. Another record. Outside, Marissa didn't speak this time. She walked past me like I didn't exist. Tom exhaled slowly. She's burning credibility. And she knows it, I said. Yes, he replied. Which means the next move won't be professional. I looked out at the parking lot. When evidence fails, people pivot. Not to truth, to pressure. And pressure was coming next. The calls started the following week. Not from lawyers, from family. My sister first, then a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, then an old church friend. Same tone, same words. Marissa is worried about you. She says you're isolating. She just wants to help. I recognized the pattern immediately. When institutions stop working, people use relationships. Pressure feels softer when it wears a familiar face. I didn't argue. I listened. I took notes. Dates, names, exact phrasing. Because repetition reveals coordination. By the fifth call, I knew it wasn't coincidence. It was a campaign. Marissa didn't contact me directly. That was intentional. Direct contact creates records. Indirect contact creates doubt. She says you're refusing care, my sister told me. Care for what? I asked. She didn't say. Of course she didn't. Ambiguity spreads faster than facts. 2 days later, the pastor requested a meeting. Just to check in, he said. Tom advised against it. I went anyway. Community pressure only works if you retreat from it. The pastor was kind, concerned, but misinformed. Marissa showed me documents, he said gently. Which ones? I asked. He hesitated. Medical concerns. From which doctor? He didn't know. Did she show you the full evaluations? I asked. No. I nodded. That's important. He shifted uncomfortably. She's very convincing, he said. I know, I replied. I didn't defend myself. I offered facts, dates, outcomes, court decisions. Truth doesn't argue. It clarifies. By the end of the meeting, his tone had changed. I think, he said slowly, she may be acting out of fear. No, I said, she's acting out of control. That distinction matters. Fear asks for help. Control demands obedience. The next move was louder. An anonymous report to Adult Protective Services. Claim. Self-neglect. Investigator assigned. She arrived unannounced. Professional. Neutral. She asked to see my home. My finances. My medications. I cooperated fully. Transparency starves suspicion. She reviewed everything. Then asked one question. Who benefits if you're declared dependent? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She closed her folder. This report will be closed, she said. Unsubstantiated. Another record. Another failure. Marissa escalated again. This time publicly. A post appeared on social media. Vague. Emotional. Watching a loved one refuse help is heartbreaking. No names. But everyone knew. Friends messaged. Some cautious. Some judgmental. I said nothing. Silence denies oxygen. Tom filed a response anyway. Cease and desist. Defamation notice. Evidence attached. She deleted the post within hours. But screenshots exist forever. That night, I slept well. Because patterns don't lie. Each move had become sloppier. More emotional. Less strategic. Pressure had replaced planning. Which meant time was no longer on her side. The next morning, Tom called. She's requested mediation. I paused. That's new. It means she's stuck, he said. And wants leverage. I looked out the window. Mediation isn't about resolution. It's about fishing for concessions. I'll attend, I said. On one condition. Tom waited. No closed doors. He smiled. Agreed. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Neutral office. Third-party mediator. Marissa arrived early. She looked tired, but determined. When we sat down, she spoke first. I just want my father safe. I met her eyes, then stopped trying to control him. Silence. The mediator cleared his throat. We're here to find common ground. There is common ground, I said calmly. My autonomy. Marissa's jaw tightened. You're pushing everyone away. No, I replied. I'm refusing manipulation. The mediator tried to reframe. Perhaps shared oversight? I shook my head. Oversight requires consent. Marissa leaned forward. If you don't cooperate, she said, this will get worse. That was the moment, not the threat. The admission. Tom spoke. "Thank you," he said pleasantly, "for stating intent." Marissa froze. The mediator blinked. "What do you mean?" he asked. Tom slid a document forward. Harassment timeline. Coordinated contact. False reports. Public defamation. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He documented. Marissa's face changed. She stood. "This is over." "Yes," Tom said. "It is." She left without another word. The mediator sat back. "I think," he said slowly, "this session has concluded." Outside, Tom exhaled. She crossed a line. "And now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we stop reacting." I nodded. Because when pressure fails, people either retreat, or they break, and I knew which one she was. The silence that followed was different. Not dramatic, not angry, final, no calls, no messages, no intermediaries. That's how you know a campaign has failed. People don't go quiet when they're confident. They go quiet when the board has flipped against them. Tom moved fast, not aggressively, precisely. First, a protective court filing. Not a restraining order. Something cleaner. A declaration of autonomous capacity, entered into record. Independent evaluations attached. Financial competency affirmed. Medical authority limited by written consent. It wasn't emotional. It was structural. Once it was filed, the rules changed. No one could claim concern without evidence. No one could help without permission. No one could step in, just in case. The law doesn't care about intentions, only documentation. Marissa received notice 3 days later. Certified. Receipt confirmed. She didn't respond. Instead, her attorney did. A short letter, carefully worded. They were withdrawing all pending inquiries and reserving no future claims. That sentence matters. It meant surrender without admission, which is as close as manipulators ever come to apology. 2 weeks passed. Then something unexpected happened. She showed up, not at my house, at the courthouse. I was there finalizing a separate filing when I saw her across the hall. She looked smaller, not weak, just exposed. She hesitated before approaching. "I didn't think you'd go this far," she said. I didn't answer right away. I never rush words that can't be taken back. "You went far first," I replied. Her eyes flashed. "I was trying to protect you." "No," I said calmly. "You were trying to control uncertainty." She scoffed. "You always think you're right." I nodded once. "Because I keep records." That ended it. She turned and walked away. No shouting. No tears. Just reality. After that, things resolved themselves quietly. Her access to accounts, revoked. Her authority, null. Her narrative, collapsed. People stopped calling. The concern evaporated once it had no source. That's the thing about manufactured worry. It only survives while someone feeds it. Months later, I received one last update. Marissa had moved. Different state. New job. Fresh start. No forwarding address. I didn't feel relieved. I felt settled. Because the story wasn't about her. It never was. It was about what happens when people confuse love with entitlement. When family becomes leverage. When silence is mistaken for weakness. I didn't win. I enforced boundaries. And boundaries don't punish. They clarify. My life returned to routine. Morning coffee. Evening walks. Paperwork handled by choice, not pressure. Nothing dramatic. Which is exactly how justice works.
Thank
when
you
it's
for
done
listening.
properly.
Calm justice.
Quietly. Permanently. On record.